Well, we'll crack into it then. Friday. I missed something.
That ought to make good vision.
Anyway, Friday at the NED Whisky Tasmania SuperSprint, we have some team representatives getting ready to kick off our weekend here before we hit the track at Symonds Plains. In the middle is David Noble from Dick Johnson Racing, Brad Jones from, of course, Brad Jones Racing to his right, and Tim Blanchard from, well, Blanchard Racing team on the other end. Fellas, thanks for joining us this morning. David, I'll start with you in the middle. Sort of the talk of town has been we've been hitting into the second half of the season, getting ready, to, if you will. So you want to just surmise, I guess, to this point in the year where the Shell V-Power Racing team's at, how they're tracking, and what you're looking for in these last 5 rounds of the year now?
Yeah, slow and steady, I think. You know, we've consistently believed that we've learned, you know, as we've gone through the season. This weekend gives us another opportunity before we head into the Enduro. So qualifying, we've been pretty consistent. You know, Anton's the only driver at the moment that's been in all top 10 shootouts. Will pole at, you know, last round at Sydney. So transferring that into race pace is, you know, it's been a bit tricky for us at the moment. We feel like we're slowly getting there, but yeah, reasonably happy with where we are at the moment, but certainly not satisfied by any stretch.
About a year and a half or so in the role for you with this team.
Yep.
Tell us, how's that learning curve coming along? It's, you know, I think quite a big shift in some respects coming into this this industry. Have you come to grips with it and feel like you've settled in properly now? Yeah,
to a degree. I mean, elite sport is elite sport. You know, it's about the wins. It doesn't matter what sport you participate in at, you know, at the highest level. You know, we're at the top bracket of the country's, you know, motorsport. And it's about wins. Doesn't matter where you go. So that's the driver, you know, for us, is to win driver and teams championships and to win races, and, you know, to make sure that our fans are coming to the races knowing that we can win races. So that doesn't change, I don't think, in what sport you are. Look, I'm just continuing to learn every day. You know, I'm just trying to be a big sponge, trying to help and guide the environment, you know, and I guess add my sporting background and knowledge that I have in, you know, from an administrative perspective, and yeah, I've loved it.
And I guess as a seasoned veteran, maybe, or a seasoned sportsman, maybe not, but being a Tasmanian, does this bring any extra value for you to try to bring home some trophies this weekend? Yeah,
it does. Yeah, I remember coming up here as a kid. I grew up, born and raised in Tassie, and there was very much a north versus south rivalry, particularly in the, you know, the football sort of sector. Was, you know, my dad was a state representative here as well, and there was very much a north, northwest and southern, you know, rivalry. It was fierce rivalry back then. So yeah, I remember coming up here to a few rounds and watching Symonds Plains. Hasn't changed much. I think they've re-tarmacked the track a few times, but yeah, it's still the way that I remember it, sort of coming up to Launceston and driving past Symonds Plains and every now and then dropping in and being able to a couple of tracks. So yeah, it'd be nice to have a win at home.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't ask it. These guys probably would. You've got a young fellow who will be joining you at Sandown and Bathurst, who has been in the news over the last few weeks.
Yep.
Speak to us about just your thoughts on having Kai in the team, and then, of course, for a young guy to get the opportunity that he has to step up next year has got to be pretty cool.
Yeah, look, I think it's great. You know, my background has probably strongly been entrenched in development and youth development, and it's great to see, you know, a young guy getting an opportunity. And unfortunately, it wasn't with us. It just timing didn't work out for us, but look, he's a cracking driver. I'm, you know, super excited that he's got a drive with Grove. You know, I'm sure he'll pair with Matty Payne. I was talking to Shippy yesterday. They're very excited about him being on board, and I think it's great for the category to have some more youth coming through to put some pressure on some of the older guys.
And again, another one that these guys will probably ask if I don't. Where do you guys sit with next year? Obviously, 2 drivers in the top 10 at the moment, so safe to say the 2 guys in the seat doing quite well. Where do you guys stand for 2025?
Well, look, when the time's right, we'll make the announcements. We're just working through a process at the moment, and, you know, we're in no hurry to get it right.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I'll go to Brad next, because you're looking right at me
Hello.
already. Good morning. How's it going, Brad? Welcome.
Fantastic. It's great to be here.
It absolutely is. Tell us, you know, season 2024 for you so far. Probably not as shiny as it was in some respects, but you have picked up a win this year. Give us the report card so far from BJR thus far in 2024.
Well, it's not a good one. We've had a pretty tough year. As you said, we picked up a win with Andre in New Zealand, which is fantastic. But I feel like we're on the wrong side of a tenth of a second at the moment. And, you know, the difference at Andre between being in and out of the top 10 at Sydney Motorsport Park, as an example, was 0.02 of a second. So it doesn't take much to turn it around, but we're working really hard at BJR to do that. And sometimes it's a little like turning around the Queen Mary, and I feel like we're at that position at the moment. So looking forward to the Enduros. I think we've got reasonable race pace. So that's about where we are.
Yeah, we have heard that continuing trend through the years. It's tenths and hundredths that are a huge difference. Can you try to just shed some light on just how hard it is to find that little fraction of a second that really does make a huge difference in your whole weekend?
Well, we're finding it impossible at the moment, so it's pretty hard. It's just chipping away at it really and trying different things. So, there's a lot going on in the category, I feel, at the moment. So, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of the AVL testing. But I feel like at the moment we're not doing a good enough job, and so we're working really hard to improve that.
You've had one new driver come into the fold this year in Jackson, and I think it's safe to say for a fair few people, he's been pretty impressive. Some good runs on the board for a guy who is going through a big shift and change and getting used to these cars. What's your assessment of the young Kiwi so far?
Yeah, I think he's doing a great job. I think anyone that comes into the category from GT racing or any other sort of racing, and it's not their bread and butter, he's still coming. He's never raced here before, as an example, even though he's done Porsche in Australia. So, he's very impressive. I think he's doing a great job for the team, and he fits really well. He's pretty easygoing, and very focused at being a race car driver, like all young guys. So, yeah, he's doing a good job for us.
You mentioned the Enduros coming up next. You formally finalized your lineup last week. You've got a couple of new guys in the squad in terms of your co-drivers. Tell us about those four that are coming in and that we'll see at Sandown about this.
Yeah, we've changed two really and moved one around. So look, Declan comes to a lot of the races. He fits really well with the crew. I mean, all the co-drivers have spent a lot of time in the different cars, and they all turned up at the ride day and had a run after Sydney Motorsport Park and seemed settled. And so, it's definitely an important focus for us, Enduros. If you're having a tough year and you have a really strong Bathurst, it cleans the year up a fair bit. So it'll be important for us to do well at that event. But I think they all fit pretty well, and I'm really looking forward to getting into the Enduros.
And then looking further afield, like I asked David about, there's the driver market and driver news starting to kick along. Where do you guys stand at the moment looking for next season?
Well, nothing's looking to change much at BJR that I know about at the moment. So if it does, I'll let you know.
Well, thank you very much for that. I'll look over to the other side of the table now with Tim Blanchard. Tim, welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning. You packed the beanie and you're ready to rock for whatever might come this way this weekend, it seems.
Yeah, I think I thought it was going to be colder, to be honest. So, yeah, good to be in Tasmania, and it's obviously not as cold as we were anticipating.
You've talked about it so far this year. It's not been quite the season I think you guys have been hoping for in terms of results across the board, but probably fair to expect some humps in the road given the expansion you guys have been through this year. Tell us about how that learning curve's been going from 1 to 2 cars over at BRT.
Yes, clearly been very tough. So we've started, almost started from scratch again, going from 1 car to 2. It's a big learning curve. We've got a lot of new staff. In fact, pretty much all our staff are new from last year, and a couple that were new to the sport in the last 12 months. So it's been a really challenging 12 months in preparing and expanding to 2 cars. So we knew it was going to be a tough challenge, and but yeah, I think there's a lot of progress we have made. It hasn't translated to results yet, but the cars and the team and the structure, processes behind the scenes all look very different to what they did, say, at Bathurst or Grand Prix at the beginning of the year. So there's a lot of development going on, investing a lot in developing our staff. There's a lot of them are quite inexperienced at supercar racing, so we're spending a lot of time developing them, giving them the resources to grow as well, and a lot going on with the cars. So hopefully soon we'll start to see that translate into some on-track performance.
I don't need to ask you necessarily about 2025, but I'll ask you about 2024 driver lineups that you have. It's an interesting dynamic with JC and Aaron. How have you seen that relationship developing and that dynamic working with, one guy, quite frankly, is old enough to be the father of the other?
Yeah, it's often the joke internally. But yeah, master and their apprentice, we're trying we're calling them. But yeah, I think you've got a young kid that's hungry, trying to make his mark, and we've given him quite a challenge with the expansion. But then we've also got a veteran, someone like James, and where he is, it is his career. It's probably very different, James, to what a lot of people are used to. He's very much supportive in helping grow the team and helping everyone in the team learn from his experience, and including Aaron. I don't think 5 years ago you would have had James Courtney sitting there in debrief coaching his teammate and helping his teammate the way he is. So I think the dynamic between the two of them is working really well. Having James in the team to help mentor Aaron, just got to make the cars faster.
And looking at that and looking to make the cars faster, as we head into the Enduros in the last 5 rounds of the year, or last handful of rounds that are coming up in this season, what are some goals that you guys might be looking to attain here as we head into the back half of the year?
Yeah, I think at the moment it's been quite challenging the last few events, so we're just looking to make some steps forwards, and next year it's a fresh sheet of paper, so I guess we've got Enduros and some marquee events coming up. It'd be great to get some solid results at those events to end the year on a bit of a high, and try and get next year, hit the ground running a bit next year.
Excellent. I'll open it up to the journalists in the room. If you guys have any questions you want to ask the boys about here. If you have to.
I'll start with Brad because
Thanks, Connor.
you're welcome. In terms of turning around the Queen Mary, will a bit of water this weekend help that? Obviously you won in the rain at Taupo.
There you go. Very good. That's a great question. Look, I think here is going to be probably the closest that we're closer than Perth. I think, if it's dry. But yeah, in the wet it opens up a fair bit. So Andre was, right on point in the wet, and all the cars were pretty fast, really. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Do you want it to rain?
Not especially. I'm not driving the car, so I'm not been nonplussed. But we've made some changes. I'm interested to see how we go in the dry. So today's going to be dry, so we'll see. But if we're going like shit, then I'd rather it be wet.
Dave, just further on the driver stuff.
Yep.
Is there a timeline, I guess, that fans might kind of have an idea when things might become clear?
It's hard to say, Connor. To be fair, there's one of our owners is overseas at the moment. He's back this week. It's been a little tricky just, narrowing down some conversations and bits and pieces, but probably by the end of next month, I would think. That's probably where we're at. We've just got to do our due diligence and understand that, everybody keeps looking at us, but we've just got to do the right work and make the right decisions, and when the time's right, we'll let everyone know.
And in terms of the AVL stuff, we've had the first part done. Obviously the second part been slightly delayed, but is there any insights into how the first part went and, what was gained out of that?
Probably asking the wrong person from a technical perspective, but look, as far as I'm aware, I think their supercars have been pretty happy with, how things have been run initially. It was always a bit of a stretch, I think, to come back, get a heap of data, look at it, reassess it, and sort of push everyone back over. So I think the extension to sort of push it away for a week, I think, has been helpful for everyone. I know, Craig and our guys and the GM guys, they're pretty tapped. They're pulling 18-hour days over there. So it was pretty intense. But to their credit, everyone's got in, worked well together. From what I understand, the data's pretty substantial and pretty thorough. It's just going to take a bit of time to work that through and then work out what the next phase is for it.
And Tim, just obviously Sydney was, not good for you guys. How has the last 4 kind of weeks looked to try and make here different to how Sydney went?
There's been a lot of changes since Sydney. So we've kind of stripped the cars and gone through everything thoroughly, and basically what you probably traditionally do off season in terms of rebuilding and checking everything and re-rating everything. So we've gone through the cars fairly thoroughly. So hopefully they're faster, but one thing we're sure of, they're not going to be the same as Sydney. We're coming here with a very different car. We've also spent a fair bit of time with our people, and spent a bit of time out of the workshop just trying to develop our people in the team and give them a bit more confidence and resources to do their jobs better. So both from a car technical point of view and a personnel point of view, I think we've utilised the extra week break between events pretty well.
And in terms of like having this sort of alliance, I guess, with Walkinshaws, how did you settle on those guys as being the right partner for Blanchards?
We looked at a few options, and I guess there's a few relationships between Walkinshaws and us that were existing, not formally. Just obviously we got SCAF engineering Chaz, which was James's old engineer from the last few years. So there's a few just examples like that where there's an existing relationship, and we looked at a few options where we can get some support from some of the leading forward teams, because we had a pretty young engineering group, and we didn't have a lot of a database and a lot of the resources that the top teams had to lean on. So we just need to kind of fast track some of that development and some of the resources they had to play with.
David, I'll just ask you another question about drivers, because I'm sure you're not sick of that at all. There's still the uncertainty, but the one thing we know, obviously, is that you made the clear decision on Kai that he wasn't in the mix for whatever reason. That was sort of communicated to him so early. Was there a conscious decision to allow him to get on the market and go and get something locked in once you guys had internally decided that he wasn't going to be in one of the cars next year?
Yeah, well, I mean, there was constant dialogue with myself and Dave Ellis, in regards to where the timing was. I mean, we all sign off our guys on contract and timeframes and bits and pieces, and we just weren't in a position where we could legitimately stall, and felt like we had to do the right thing for Kai, that if he did have other options. And I had that open conversation with Dave to sort of say, look, have you got any other offers on the table? And it's like, no, but there's interest. And it's like, well, we can't put an offer in front of you like as of the end of the time frame that we had. So he goes with our blessing. We invested heavily in him last year, put a wild card, which is a fairly heavy resource and financial commitment to give him an opportunity to get into the category. So we're happy we've been able to support, but slightly disappointed that we couldn't continue that journey. But I'm also excited that he's been able to get into the category. So there's no harsh feelings from our side of things. We just couldn't commit at the right time frame for them, and so they take the opportunity, and wish him well.
Brad, you touched on it briefly before, but how eager are you to see the results of this AVL dyno testing? Is the parity thing a little bit of a question mark for you guys as you try to become more competitive again?
Well, I'll start by saying we're not doing a good enough job. But if you look at the Teams Championship and see how that's stacked, you guys are actually meant to be the journalists and looking at that shit and working it out. So I don't think you need me to point out how it looks. And if you're unsure, just go have a look at the chart. So I'm quite eager to see what happens at AVL.
One thing we can see as journalists is there's not that many rounds in this championship these days, and a lot of people would like to see more, but there's obviously economic factors. Can we just get a read from each of you on what that's going to look like next year? Is there going to be an expansion? What needs to happen to get there? Starting with you, Brad.
Oh, thanks. That's 2. I'm 2 from 2. I've got a question at the end, but I think that where we're at and the deals that have been put in place, it'd be fair to say that we all want to grow and get the championship bigger, but there are commercial outcomes that every time we put on another race, it's very expensive for the supercars. So I feel, and it's just my personal opinion, that we're probably in a position where we should stay at 12 next year, and then when the business has the opportunity to get the deals in place that it needs to, so it's not really expensive for the business to grow, then that's probably the right time. Does that make sense?
Dave?
I think financial considerations taken into account. I look at the start of this year. We had one live race in Australia in the first quarter of the year, and we're trying to compete as a sports entertainment industry at the top end of the market. We need more, in my opinion. We need to look at how we bring new demographics in. We need to look at how we're going to go to pitch our deal next year to TV. We need to look at how we can embrace a new partner in our data sharing from an app perspective. We've all sort of talked around that.
We've been at 18 races.
Yeah.
So you can look back and see what we can do.
That's not my decision. I mean, that's the decision of the category. So
Well, it's a
I would
financial
like to see
decision.
more racing. And I think if supercars are looking at a slightly different mechanism as to how they do that with more sprints, I understand the impact on the business. Like, I get it. I look at the data every day. So I understand that. You're asking for my opinion. I'd like to see more racing. I'd like to see us be able to go to the market and compete harder with other sports in the country.
Even if that means the teams have to compromise financially?
No, I mean, it's a privately owned industry. You know, other industries that are run are not for profit. They run it differently. They have a strong membership base. They have bigger platforms. You know, we're a private sector business. The category's owned privately. Our businesses are all private invested. So I understand the implications from a financial perspective. But you asked the question, what would I like to see? I would like to see, understanding that there are financial constraints, more racing. I'm not saying that we need to go to 18, like that's just ridiculous, but because I think, you know, Brad's experienced that before. I understand the implications of that, but could we go to 13 or 12 or could we 14? Could we slightly manoeuvre around how we run the races of a Saturday, Sunday? I don't know.
Tim?
Yeah, I think like the others touched on, we're all here because we like going racing. We don't want to see our cars sit in the workshop. We want to see them on the track racing against everyone else. So I think everyone wants to get out there and do some more races each year. It's just how do we make it work from a financial point of view is probably the big issue we need to resolve. So hopefully we can get that resolved and get to 13, 14, 15 races in the next few years.
So just to add to my point, it's not that I don't think we should do it. I just think it's very, very difficult commercially.
100% agree. It's tough, isn't it? What was your question?
Oh, yeah. Okay, Aaron, if you had to rate getting out of the rental car area at the Launceston Airport from 1 to 10, what would you score it at as finding the exit? What would you put a number on that? It's a 10. That's it.
Would you like to share a story on that? Good enough. Well, if that's everyone in the room, thank you guys. Very good insights there. Appreciate your time, and we'll see you out on the track this afternoon.